Okay.
Are we rolling?
We're rolling.
All right. Okay, so here, hold it. So as I threatened before, I'm now going to tell you a little bit about frame control by giving you the model I use, which I call reasoned confidence. Before I make a choice, before I make a judgment call, a decision, before I take an action, I consider, do I know enough about it to be able to find reasoned confidence? Do I know enough? Have I found enough data? Have I taken the necessary time? Or do I need to wait a little longer? If I know I've collected all the reasonable data that can be expected, I have enough in front of me that I can make a judgment call. And I process it through my brain, and I come up with the idea of what I want. And then I think about it and I go, okay, does this work? Can I work with this? Can I synthesize it in my brain and see how it's going to work? Yes? Okay, great. Now I say, how do I feel about that? Because an important thing people tend to forget is that while feelings are not logical, they're not irrational, they're very rational. They're very reasonable. Feelings have kept us alive for millions of years as a species. Things that can't be put into words, therefore cannot be represented as logic, are still very real. If you meet someone who just creeps you out for reasons you can't explain, stay away from them. Generally speaking, if you don't, you'll realize later you really should have. People, like animals, all varieties, have instincts. There are things that creep you out. Now, some people are naturally xenophobic. They fear the unknown, so, sometimes you have to stop yourself. Don't necessarily make a grandiose assessment. Give people an opportunity to show themselves. But by the time you're a grown-up, you've probably given yourself a lot of opportunity to figure out how you feel about things. Not everyone's going to have the right feelings. Not everything's going to make sense. But don't discount how you feel. Because even though you can't negotiate with how you feel about something, your brain cannot say to your emotional center, oh, you're just being silly, and have your emotional center change. What your brain can do is, when it's confident, it can cause a reframing internally. The image that you see is bounded on all sides. You have a frame. The frame of male-female paradigm I just took and shook around for you a little bit and reshaped. Some of you are going to have a little while before you can feel it. Your brain will go, this is okay, but you'll meet some girl and you'll know half a dozen of your buddies have been with her and you'll go, Eventually you'll get past that. You'll stop worrying about it at all. But there's a time lag between reframing and emotional centering. So accept that that will take place. Ideally, all throughout your life, you'll be able to make your decisions based on this very simple mechanism, if you like. You think about it. You make sure you've got all the information you can, all the data from which to extract that information that you need. When you're confident you do, you run it past your emotions and you say, how do I feel about this? You know what? I feel really good. This makes sense. I'm comfortable with this. This is a good idea. All right, run it past one last thing. To really be honest with yourself and say, you know what? Am I hitting a little ethical margin release key, like on an old keyboard, old typewriter? Am I stretching my boundaries a little bit to make this work for me because I want to? Because if you're changing your ethical boundaries, then you're really not thinking things through. So before you do that, you say, okay, well, totally comfortable with this. This makes sense to me, whatever the idea is. Gonna move to another city, gonna leave my wife, gonna buy a dog, right? Gonna buy a new car, gonna change jobs, or something simple like, am I gonna go out drinking with my buddies, or am I gonna read this book? Whatever. You make the call, you go, okay, I understand the impact of it. I know what it's gonna mean for me. I feel good with my decision. And there isn't anything in my conscience saying, Now, when you get to that point where those three reporting agencies, your brain, your emotional center, and your conscience, all come back with a positive, then you can go ahead with it completely comfortably. Completely. You've got reasoned confidence. And when someone else looks at you, when you're about to do something that you've reasoned through, and they look at you and go, you don't want to do that. That's not the way it's supposed to be done. That's not the way it's always been done. Don't you? Oh, come on. What are you? You're being an idiot. Go with what you've proven to yourself. Because there are basically three possibilities. One, you've made a judgment call error somewhere along the line, and you're going to learn it on the other side. Okay? Most of the time, if you've made an error, you can simply step back, take the new data you have, reanalyze to see whether the problem was something you couldn't have predicted or didn't predict, or a persistent problem like a reasoning error. You can make modifications. The second possibility is that the results are going to be satisfactory but not what you expected. In which case, once again, go back and figure out why, figure out how you got to that ending, and work from there. And the third possibility is it's going to work exactly the way you thought it was. You're going to be laughing all the way to the bank, ignoring that person who's giving you that, I don't approve. You're losing approval by doing this thing that you want to that makes sense for you. But you don't need his approval. You need your approval. Right? If you allow yourself to be hampered from doing things that make sense to you because third parties whom you don't admire are not giving you their approval, then you're insane. Crazy. Makes sense to you? You've gone through it. Works in your brain, works in your heart, works in your conscience. Go with it. Once you've proven yourself, the naysayers, they're all going to shut the fuck up. Eventually, when you're fabulously successful with it, they're going to say, I knew him back when he was only... They're going to brag about knowing you before you made your big leap. Go ahead.
Well, you have an ethical problem with something, and you begin to suspect that you'd like to change that ethical position.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you do that without fudging it?
That's an entirely different question, and a very, very good one. Your ethical standards are different from moral codes. Moral codes are the codes of the society in which you find yourself because that's where you are. Ethical codes are codes which you have agreed to by choosing to be part of a society, or like the Society of Engineers, the Society of Architects, Society of medical doctors, whichever. Ethical codes are codes that have been agreed upon by you. You've signed up for them. You've bought into them. Moral codes are the overriders. Okay? If you decide that the ethical codes you've bought into, for whatever reason, aren't working for you, you have to very seriously consider that. Sometimes the right thing to do is to go back to the organizing body and say, you know what, there's a problem with this, because if you've noticed it and you can prove it, then almost certainly the other people in the group will be able to recognize it too, and they'll either make a good case for why it's the way it is, or they'll say, well, I understand your complaint, but there's no way to make this flexible, in which case you need to decide whether or not you're prepared to step outside of that, and sometimes it'll mean leaving that organization. But anyone who follows rules made by other people really not qualified to be paying attention to this particular seminar. The only rules that you should concern yourself are the rules that make sense to you. Okay? Good news is, we're fundamentally a society of laws. People like to know that they can reasonably predict the outcome of things because things are fairly clearly defined. Nothing wrong with any of that. But the good news is, we live in a society of laws where everyone expects everyone's going to be margin releasing here a little and margin releasing there a little, and everything gets a little bit squishy. So the question is, can you work within an ethical system in which you never ever have to question any of your decisions? The answer is, you have to be able to. You have to be. And how do you make that so? You figure out what works for you. And if it turns out that you can be exactly like everyone else in this organization except in this one way, you state it. You say, guys, you know what? I believe in every last thing in this group. But this one thing that is within our ethical code, here's my reason for variance. And you know, you'll almost always get a pass. It'll be an established one. You'll have other very bright and wise people saying, you know what? I can see your point. We didn't think this through. Because rules are made at one point, rules are applied consistently, but things change. So as long as you memorize this little slogan for yourself, you'll be just fine. This little slogan, simplest thing in the world. I would never do anything I wouldn't do. Understand? Sounds really simple and banal, but it isn't. As long as you'll never do anything you wouldn't do. You never have a reason for regret. You never have a reason for embarrassment. If another person tries to put embarrassment on you, laugh at it. You don't live to entertain him. You're not here for his approval. You're doing what makes sense to you. Another person tries to put guilt on you. Your father, your teacher, your buddy. Say, hang on. I didn't agree to any of that. I'm doing the things that make sense to me. I've thought it through. I understand. I've got reasonable confidence. Very well reasoned. I've really made sure I'm not making a mistake here. The truth of the matter is, as you get more and more comfortable with your ethical system, your conscience, which is a practical application of your philosophy versus your ethical system, okay? And your emotions, when you can really connect these things, it takes very little time. You actually get to the point where you always know how you'll deal. You really learn who you are. Because once you know who you are, you know what you'll do. As a matter of fact, I'll go so far as to say that virtually every person who knows me at all always knows how I'll react to any situation. I have tremendously broad latitude in what I'll accept. And at the ends, there are chasms that go off forever, with no leaping to the other side. You reach the end of what I accept, you're doing it on your own. Okay? Anything inside is totally fine. I'll play ball. I'm happy. Whatever you want to do, lead your life your way. Very few things are outside the pale. But it's very, very clear to people who know me because I am extremely consistent. Almost alarmingly so. And people know in advance when to come to me for advice. Because people, by their nature, go for advice to the person who will give them the advice they want to get. Mm-hmm. So if a person's looking for a way to get around something, and they're not feeling that good about it, they don't come to me. Because they know that I'm going to tell them to be true to themselves. Don't be morally bankrupt or ethically bankrupt, because you don't get to restart from ground zero. Right? Some people's moral compasses, I heard this in a movie the other day, I thought it was wonderful. Some people's moral compasses are so far out of whack, it's amazing they can find their way back to their home, to their room. Okay? The important part is, for each person, to figure out what they are who they are, what they need, and what they believe in, and live within it. If you discover you believe in something new, you've learned something new, something's opened your eyes, you go, oh my God, all this time I thought that white was yellow. But in fact, they're different. You may have to go back to ground zero and rebuild your system.
Or repaint.
Oh, God, I love you. Go to the dentist. Whatever. But be true to yourself, because you're the only one of you've got. And if you can't trust yourself, no one else can trust you at all. One of the things that's really amazing about the nature of women, and if you talk to any women, you'll get the same thing. Say, just for an experiment, go out and say to some woman friend or some new woman in a bar, here's a great opinion opening for you guys. Okay? Some guy I was listening to today said something really entertaining. He said, if there's one thing all women and men can agree upon, it's that you can't trust women. The girls will all smile and nod and laugh. Now that's a great reason to open up with the whole, how unfair it is the way society screws with women's brains by teaching them that if they do what they want to do, they're unclean and nasty and need to punish themselves. Okay? Which is a wonderful lead into the whole seductive reasoning paradigm. The wonderful thing is sometimes you'll meet some woman and she'll be nodding along with you right away and she'll pick it up, and after 5 minutes you'll realize you don't need to tell this girl anything more about this. She fully understands. And you'll have a really good time talking with her and laughing with her, and she'll feel that you and she are on the same non-battlefield, because there is no battle for this. And you can say, you know, it's wonderful to meet someone who really understands this, has liberated themselves, freed their mind from this oppressive society that doesn't let women do things for recreation. Isn't it awful the way, even though we're built to be able to have lots of recreational sex, it happens so infrequently? And the girl may well say to you, well, it may happen infrequently for others, it doesn't happen that infrequently for me. You'll say, me neither, let's get out of here. I've had that conversation a number of times. Not as often as I'd like. If you guys can really start spreading the word, pretty soon I'm sure it'll happen a lot more frequently. And the purpose of this is, when the water level in the arena goes up, guys, all the boats lift at the same time. Which is why none of us stands to lose anything by sharing all of this. Do you follow what I'm saying? This is not some mysterious secret, not some routine. I'm saying, whatever means possible, spread this meme. It's like, ladies, the word is legs. Spread the word. Anyway, the objective is propagate this to everyone you can and ensure that they understand that for their own sake as well, they should propagate it as far and wide as they can, because it's to everyone's advantage as women start to remember that doing what they want to do makes them feel good and doesn't need to come along with the burden of their having to feel bad. Right? Is there anyone here who in their heart is still having some anxiety about the idea that a girl who has sex with a whole bunch of people for her own purposes, for fun or for sport or for ego gratification or whatever, is actually an empowered, liberated, self-reliant person? Everyone's comfortable with that? You know, that girl almost certainly is a whole lot more entertaining to be in bed with than any virgin that's ever lived. Because sex is a learned thing. And, just like playing chess against your old man, having only one partner for a long time will teach you how to do one set of things well. But it will not help you nearly as much as having an awful lot of partners. You have to mix it up if you want to learn how to do a lot of things well. I consider myself to be a marital arts master. I have multiple Dan levels in Tung Fu, for example. Was any of that being recorded?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking. So, presuming that we all have come to comfort, at least in our brains, with the idea that a woman who's having an awful lot of recreational sex isn't just okay, but actually has some really desirable attributes to her. Amongst others, odds are pretty good that if she's an adult, she's not doing it for simple popularity. She's doing it because she likes the act. She's having a good time with it. Once in a while, you're going to come across some girl, pardon the expression, who has never had a good time in bed, but she knows that she likes the gratification of having a lot of guys pay attention to her. So she goes to bed with a lot of guys. And you may think, oh, that poor tragic girl. But you know what you're going to do for her? You're going to go to bed with her, and you're going to rock her world. And her whole attitude towards sex is going to change. I have a pretty traditional, average-sized penis. And I'm in love with my penis. We have a fantastic relationship. Best boss I've ever had. My job is transportation director and public relations for the Crippler. It's a very simple gig. Just have to get it to the job on time and it does all the rest of the work.
Hey, you can even be late.
Now at the
You're
end,
better that way.
the whole purpose. I've had many years of dating porn stars, many of whom have grown up in trailer trash environments, or worse, garbage blanc, as I like to say, where there were no guys who knew anything about making women happy in bed and none of them that cared. You know, that whole macho construct. How does a real man know when his girlfriend's had an orgasm? Real men don't care. Now, there are enough guys out there who follow from this premise that a lot of these girls had sex because it was the thing to do, or they were bored and there wasn't a lot of other option. And once in a while, some guy would get a real reputation amongst the girls because he had a particularly huge piece of masculine equipment. Didn't mean he was any good with it, but it would be big and scary, and the girls would all get a rush out of it because for some reason they'd have bought into the male paradigm. See, the male paradigm is that a big cock is long. The mature female paradigm is a big cock is thick. Okay? Now, at the end of the day, guys with particularly big, from masculine size, penises, usually don't know what they're doing with them, and they'll brutally try and slide it all into a girl, and she can take about 5.5 inches, and they may have 9.5 inches or more. It's very tricky. What'll happen is they'll batter her on the inside pretty badly until her endorphins kick up, because that's the way you deal with pain. They call it a runner's high. When you're really out there exercising, you've gone way past your point of tolerance, but you suddenly feel euphoric and light. And they decide this is good sex because they've got that euphoria. And then eventually they decide, wow, they can escape from their not so great situation without having any worry about whether or not they embarrass their families, because after all, why are they worried about embarrassing Daddy, who used to share me with Uncle Bill when we'd have sex when I was 9? Okay? And they'll go into the skin trade. Some of them will become porn stars because they can already deal with huge peni because they've grown up with it. This is what they think they need. They become what we call size queens. And I take great pleasure in showing size queens what orgasms are. And then they follow me around. And they tell all their girlfriends about me. Word of mouth, guys, is the best. And I don't necessarily mean it as an oral thing. Because just doing the right things with traditional equipment can be fantastic. I can tell you that I've never met a girl who was orgasmic that I couldn't satisfy with, 2 fingers. Matter of fact, an interesting question. Do you know why so many Toronto girls had their first orgasms with these 2 fingers? It's because they're mine. Anyway, on a slightly more serious note. Truth is, you can do fantastic things with women that they don't even realize that they can have done with them, if you're prepared to learn about them. There are people out there who'll be very happy to teach you this stuff. Usually you're going to be looking for guys who you look at and you go, that guy is a sex wizard? Well, let me tell you something. When you meet the guys who are, they're not the chisel and buff and gorgeous fellas you'd imagine. They're the heavy-set, dumpy, relaxed guys who can have stellar, gorgeous women, follow them around and talk about them and join them in bed in groups.
Is it kind of like the fat girl who gives great head because she's making up for everything else?
I don't know. Yes, I imagine it probably is. And so, actually it's exactly the opposite. You'll never find a girl who, like yourself, gives world-class head and therefore can allow herself to become fat. You follow what I'm saying?
I'm definitely not fat.
I hear that.
Well,
My point is, when you find someone who wants to share this stuff with you, don't question whether they're any good at what they do by looking at them and going, he can't possibly be an authority on this. It's like when you walk into a restaurant, walk into a Chinese food restaurant, the thing to do is look to see how many people who are obviously ethnically Chinese there are in the restaurant. That'll give you an idea of what to expect. Okay? If you walk into a soul food restaurant that's entirely filled with white guys, probably not going to get the things you're looking for. Unless what you want is white guy version of soul food. Point is, go out and find the people who can teach you this stuff. It's not going to be women for the most part who can teach you how to please women. Because women are at least equally poor at communicating with other women as they are with men. I have taught countless women how to please other women. Because they show up at my door to learn stuff. And I have had clients and friends and women who've shown up who've had long-term relationships with other women where they've complained that they were good at the things they were doing, but the entire time their partner never got them off. And then I talked to the partner who said, well, at least they knew what they were doing, but the whole time they were together with their partner never got them off. Because both sides were faking it so as not to break the other person's heart. Sounds ridiculous, huh? It is ridiculous, but it's also absolutely true. Get this. Imagine two girls who show up, both of them figuring, well, I've got one of those, so I'm going to know what the other one likes. They like each other, they go home. Now, as you have a lot of experience with women, you'll all start to realize there are some girls who require a feather-light amount of blowing on top of their clit hood to make them go, ooh. And others who need you to peel it back and practically hit them up with a file, belt sander, before they'll notice anything. Well, these two girls may not even realize the other is a possibility, so the two get into bed together. Belt sander girl lies back. Feather light girl goes down on belt sander girl or masturbates her. Belt sander girl's going, it's start. Nothing happening yet. Come on. After a while, she'll fake an orgasm so they can switch around. Now, belt sander girl touches feather light girl, who leaps up to the ceiling and grabs on her fingernails like Sylvester the cat. Because it's way more than she can handle. And then there's lots of apologies and embarrassment. And feather touch girl says, just a little more aggressive than I can handle. So, because most guys eventually get to the point where they've had enough experience with women, they remember, wow, I remember one girl I'd practically bite the clit off, and another girl where if I got close to it, the radiant heat from my breath was enough to make her squeal. So, recognize that women are not likely going to be able to teach you very much except in real time, most of the time. But they will be able to teach you if you can disarm them. Here's another real kicker. Women believe that if they let guys know what they like in bed, the guys will immediately think they're sluts. So, because we're all emancipated, liberated men, we're going to make sure the girls know that we don't even think there's such a concept as slut. Just more experienced, skillful, and talented. We want to spend our time with girls who know what they want. We want to know that we're with girls who are with us because they want to be. What the hell's the point of being with someone who's there when they don't want to be? Matter of fact, I'm going to take this one step further. We touched briefly on the concept of territoriality. In my world, there are an awful lot of women that I love and who love me. None that I have the same sort of relationship I have with Vi over here. Violet is my primary and my beloved, and she's on my credit cards and she's on my insurance, and for all intents and purposes, she is my wife, although we'll never marry because we don't believe in it. Neither of us needs a third party to approve of our getting together in order for her to realize she's got all the security she needs in herself without me, and all the security she could possibly need from me in knowing that if I weren't into her, if I weren't happy, I'd leave. You see, we're not with each other because we've made a deal. We're not with each other for any reason at all except because we choose to be. She has her place. It's about 5 minutes walk from my place. She's never slept in it. Had it for a year, 2 years, almost 2 years now.
2 years. 2 years.
It's well set up.
December.
When guests come over who are allergic to our cats, they stay there. Otherwise, it basically sits empty most of the time. But it's because we both want to know that if we have someone else to spend time with, we don't have to take them back to our marital bed. We don't have to outplace the other. Each one of us will spend the night in our communal bed by choice, pretty much, if we're in the same city every night. This is not because we have to, but because we'd rather be there than anyplace else.
Absolutely.
This also doesn't mean they're one of the other people in that bed. Okay? By mutual invitation. Okay? And that works fantastically well. And I have complete confidence that it does not matter where Violet goes when she's not with me. Whatever she's doing with her eyes wide open. Except maybe at the last possible moment when she shuts them, because that stuff can sting. And she's making all her judgment calls reasonably, with reasoned confidence, and taking me into consideration. Her ethical system is completely secure and solid. She knows why she's doing whatever she's doing. She's having a good time with it. And she never has to worry that I'm jealous at all, because I never am. And that took some time. Once my brain figured out that jealousy was a demonstration that I didn't have solidity in my frame, that I didn't recognize that because I love her, I could set her free, and if she didn't return to me, it was for the best, because she didn't want to. But she keeps coming back. And so I know that my love is returned. Because here, guys, it's a really interesting paradigm shift for some of you, most of you, I imagine. Everyone here knows the concept of belonging, right? Thank you, love. I belong to Violet. That's all I can do. I can let Violet know I belong to her, or I cannot. It doesn't make a difference. I still belong to her. Because I am able to choose, or able to recognize anyway, that I have longing for her. When she's not near me, I want to be with her. I can't say she belongs to me. Only she can determine whether she belongs to me.
You definitely do.
And I love her. Okay? So we have mutual belonging. When we're not with each other, we wish we were. And we're way past the infatuation page of our story, but it doesn't seem to matter very much. Okay? Now, I don't possessively have any control over Violet. I don't own her at all. But here's a really interesting thing. People think about that concept of ownership. I had a conversation about this with Patrick, about his wristwatch, which has huge sentimental value for him because of how he came by it. Okay? I had asked him, would he sell it to me for twice its value? Would he sell it to me for more than that? No. He had a huge sentimental value to it. I said, does that watch belong to you? He said, absolutely. I said, do you own that watch? He said, yes. I said, except you don't own that watch. That watch owns you. That watch doesn't belong to you. You belong to it. If you put that watch in the garburator and had it all blended up, it wouldn't care at all, but you sure would. You can't put that watch down and walk away from it. That watch doesn't care at all about on whose wrist it's on, or even if it actually exists tomorrow. The watch cannot belong at all. It has no ability to have any sensation of desire to be with anything. But you sure can. So if you feel your condo belongs to you, it doesn't. You belong to it. You can't walk away from it. You've put a lot of time and effort into it, and you think just, I can't leave this. Look at how much I put into it already. Guess what? It owns you. If your condo needs something, you're going to make it happen for it. My cat gets driven over by a car. Doctors tell me it's going to be $2,000 for surgery. I'll pay it. I'll do without all sorts of things to make it possible if necessary. Because I belong to my cat. My cat doesn't belong to me. My cat will tend to come back. I do believe my cat really does care about me. I believe my cat and I have a good relationship, but I don't own the cat. And while when I open the door, the cat will run out. The cat will usually come back. So far, every time. And this is because the cat makes a choice. If the cat weren't happy, if the cat weren't comfortable, if the cat did not feel at home, it would leave. Interesting thing, when I walk out of my home, my cat meows for me. When I get out of the elevator and walk towards my place, my cat gets all excited. So we have a good relationship. It's not because I feed him, because Violet usually does. Because that's enough of that.
All this talk about cats. Must be like
Must be like. So, when you think about the concept of someone's belonging to you, it's not something you have any control over. Doesn't matter how long you've been with someone. You do not own them. They can leave. Once you wrap your head around that really remarkable thing, you recognize that the fact they're with you is because they want to be. Once they've accepted this paradigm too. See, a lot of people are trapped. They haven't established reasoned confidence as their motive for making decisions. Instead, they make their decisions based on fear of embarrassment, fear of other people's putting guilt on them, fear of disappointing people, fear of looking like idiots. Now we can get rid of all those fears. We can just write them all off. Because if we're doing the things that make sense to us, that feel right to us, that don't clearly violate our own chosen ethical codes, then we should go ahead and do them. The only regret we should have is not having done it already. Not having come to this conclusion. The only embarrassment is if we make the same mistake again. Things don't work, go back. Back to the drawing board, figure out. I designed a perfect picnic. We went out, it rained. Didn't work. Am I embarrassed about it? Screw it. No. Next time, I'm bringing an umbrella. Next time we go out, it doesn't rain, I've got the umbrella. Do I feel like an idiot for having the umbrella? Of course not. Picnic went off great. Now, if the problem was I decided to have a picnic at coordinates that I'd chosen and they happened to be in the little Lake Ontario, that problem may be more severe. So, next time I go out, either I bring an umbrella and a raft, or I don't do it again. Because if I do it and it doesn't work, then I have to feel like an idiot. Embarrassment, gentlemen, is a very powerful thing. People don't recognize what it comes from. It doesn't come from doing things that other people don't approve of. Embarrassment comes from doing something that you know you shouldn't have done. And it's very, very useful. It keeps you from making the same mistakes. Fear of embarrassment is valuable, but embarrassment can only come from you. No one else can make you embarrassed. No one else can make you happy. Other people can prevent you from being happy, or at least make it more difficult. But no human being can make another person happy. Not now, not ever. The best a person can do is their best to remove blockages from other people's happiness. Okay? When you get comfortable with that idea, you stop taking responsibility onto yourself for other people's happiness. Okay? Frank here and his wife made good choices for themselves without worrying about other people's happiness. The other people will eventually come to happiness if in fact they're worthwhile people. But Frank and his wife made their choices based on what Frank and his wife wanted, without being prevented from doing things because other people would put guilt or anxiety on them. I'll tell you frankly, guys, I haven't been embarrassed in as long as I can remember in a significant way or in a significant way, with the exception of a couple of relationships I probably should have cut off a little earlier, but I gave benefit of the doubt to things because I wanted them to go a particular way. But I haven't done anything I'm embarrassed about. I don't do things I wouldn't do. It's really simple. It's incredibly easy not to do things I wouldn't do. I'll do things that practically none of you guys will do because my latitude is so broad in what I would do. But I won't ever go past those ends. And as long as I don't, I never need to worry about being embarrassed about it. My frame control is pretty much perfect. I'll always take any question from anyone else. I will defend my positions across the board. Please go ahead.
I absolutely see the benefit of the concept of reason confidence.
I'm glad.
And it's really excellent, and it helps me understand a lot of things about myself and my own method of reasoning. What I'm wondering is, I had an incident where I behaved in a way which was totally unacceptable to me in a relationship, pushed myself way too far into a state of embarrassment by accepting things that I would never normally accept. Now that I've gotten farther away from that particular situation, I've come to understand why I made some of those choices, but I do still have residual sensitivity to the fact that I accepted those things in the past. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit maybe about how to help eliminate those through reason confidence.
Have you ever been afraid of something?
Yes.
A car ever come near you, almost hit you?
Yes.
Were you terrified?
Yes.
Are you terrified now?
No.
Good. You did something stupid before, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to do it again?
No.
Okay. Do you feel stupid about it?
On some level, yes.
Okay. Once you put your brain into gear, I want you to think about that one for a little while. What you have to recognize is that a history of making bad decisions crafts the person you are now, who doesn't make so many bad decisions. There's one valuable thing that video games have given us all. Okay? It's that it's taught a generation of people
Geeks.
across the board, a generation of people over 18, to recognize that in some things it's okay to try and fail and try and fail and try and fail and try and fail and succeed, and then try and fail and try and fail and try and fail and try and succeed. Same way we did when we were kids. The reason the 45-year-old mom can't do anything with the computer, but her 7-year-old and 11-year-old kids are wizards with it, is because they try and fail and try till they get it, because they are accepting of the idea that it's okay not to know. You gotta learn by a process of learning. Teachers aren't teachers, at least they shouldn't be. They should be learning assistants, helping people figure things out. When you're learning as you grow, you're going to make mistakes. My father used to tell me when I was skiing, he would look at my ski suit and he'd say, "You haven't fallen today. That means you haven't been trying to improve." Eventually I got to the point where I'd say, "Screw you, old man. I've been trying to improve at a reasonable pace. I'm not falling over because while I'm doing a little more than last time, I'm not ignoring the envelope. But for a lot of years, it was very helpful to me because I realized that falling, in that case, was a controllable thing. The damage was insignificant. I'd get wet on the outside of my ski suit. People could tell I fell. My fear was being embarrassed by the other kids at the school, seeing me fall. I got to be a very good skier. I knew just about exactly how far I could go before I would lose my grip. Okay? And that's reasonable. Many people live in abject terror of either the embarrassment of falling or abject terror of the embarrassment of being seen to do something outside of normal. Because normal, we live in a very normative society. Everything is trying very hard to compress everyone into something very stable. Of course, I think it was Rear Admiral Grace Hopper, the American Navy, who said, begging sirs forgiveness, but I think, no, begging the senators forgiveness, but I think don't fix it if it ain't broke is the most damning sentiment in the history of humans. Gotta keep expanding, making it a bigger place. Gotta keep pushing the boundaries to figure out what works for you. When we're children, we're taught rules, right from the time we're born. Don't touch that. Don't touch that. Don't touch that plug. Don't smoke. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't sit close to the TV. We're taught these things by people who are trying their best to help. But at the same time, they're ignoring those same rules. Don't touch those cigarettes. Don't touch those matches. Why are the matches there, Dad? Then as you grow a little older, you get new rules from new places. School teaches you rules. Television teaches you rules. Your friends teach you rules. Your friends' parents teach you rules. The church teaches you rules. Whatever. Eventually, your world gets smaller and smaller and smaller between the amount of constraints you have. So you can barely survive inside it. And as you grow, you start to realize which of those rules you can safely ignore. And you decide, well, it's the middle of the night, it's a stop sign, I can drive to the stop sign. Maybe it's the middle of the night, I know this light's going to be red for 3 or 4 minutes, so I can turn right, make a U-turn, and go through it. It's still illegal. Maybe it's the point where you drive up the stop sign, you know it's a totally empty street, you think, this is so stupid, I'm going to be here for 3 or 4 minutes. You look around, there's no one there, no police, whatever. You inch forward a couple of feet, drive through it. Wow, that was okay. A couple of days later, you show up, same sort of situation, you look around, there's nobody there. You go through it, you go, all right, that shouldn't be a stoplight at all, it should be a stop sign, or maybe it should be a flashing red with us and flashing yellow in the other direction. There's no reason to waste all our time like this. Then one day you drive up that light and there's some guy sitting at the bus stop smoking a cigarette. You go, shit. Why? Because you're going, oh shit, someone will see me. Even though every part of my brain has said previously that it's okay to go through this because it's safe, harmless. Someone's going to see me, I can't go through. And you've reached that point where you're completely insane because you're ignoring things that make perfect sense to you because someone you don't admire and has no significance to you might see you. So then you get to the point you say, screw it, I'm going to go through. And you go through and he doesn't care. And then you come up to the same light 3 or 4 days later, and there's some other guy waiting at the red light. You drive up next to him, you roll down your window, and you say, hey, buddy, it's going to be red for a few minutes, come on! And you drive through. And if he doesn't drive through, you think, what a sucker. Sometimes he'll honk at you because you're a bad guy, because you've just broken the rules. And you'll drive away going, because you've emancipated yourself from that rule. The truth of the matter is, the game of life is very simple. People will keep throwing rules at you. You have to decide which ones apply. Some of the rules apply only because you have to be careful you don't get caught breaking them. Some of the rules apply because they're really good rules. And they keep things working properly. Some of the rules aren't rules that are publicly established. They're rules about who you trust and how you decide who you trust. Rules about how you make sure you never compromise yourself. These things all come back to reasoned confidence. Trust in your own abilities to figure things out once you have sufficient data. Sometimes you'll be in a situation where it's more important to make a choice than to get the right information. Captain, we still haven't figured out how to get the depth sounder working. But we seem to be heading in a rock. Hard to port. But what if there's some... Doesn't matter. There's a rock right in front of us. Turning and being wrong. Less certain to be bad than continuing. Okay? That doesn't come up a lot in life. Not in normal life. And even if you're in a situation where that's going to come up. This evening, on the drive here, we were driving along, having a conversation. Some lady in an old-style van decided it would be a really good idea to merge into the lane where I was.
While you were in it.
Oh, I was in it. So I hit the brakes, hit my horn, pulled to the side slowly, but not enough to cut off the guy who was right behind me. Why? Because I've been driving for a long time. My brain knew where everybody was and how to respond. Violet had a very brief panic attack and then told me what a great driver I was. I'm thinking to myself, anyone would have done this.
Yeah, but this happened, I mean, the way you're describing is like, oh, we casually did this, and, you know, this happened like a kind of moment. Like, it was fast.
Video game trained reflexes. The point is, you figure out the things that you need to figure out. You learn the things that produce the person you are. And as I've said, once you know who you are, you'll know what you'll do. And actually, when other people figure out who you are, they'll know what you'll do too. And when the person you are is completely transparent, top to bottom, you are exactly the way you appear. What a person sees is what they get. And you've earned your own self-satisfaction, which is what you get when your self-confidence and your self-esteem balance out at the same level. Self-esteem, how you estimate yourself, how you regard yourself, how you envision yourself from the outside. Self-confidence, what you've proven to yourself, what you know about yourself. Gee, it's a long way across this. Can I jump it? Self-esteem says, I'm a great jumper. I can do this. If it was on the ground, I'd have no trouble. Just because I'm 50 stories up, why would I worry? Self-confidence says, most of the time I can make this. So you run back and you take the jump, or you don't, depending on what you feel you should. If your self-esteem and your self-confidence are appropriate, you'll have made the right choice, whichever choice it is. Okay? If you made the wrong choice, it's a long fall. Self-satisfaction comes from knowing for yourself who you are, where along your journey you are, whether or not this is something where you should be exploring further. I always say, if at first you don't succeed, skydiving is not for you. Otherwise, you should have plenty of latitude. So wherever possible, don't worry about falling when you're skiing. Okay? Unless you're sitting on the edge of a hill that's so steep that if you fall, there's no way you're getting yourself back up. Worst thing that's going to happen is trivial. Time? What's our situation on?
We've got about 8 minutes.
All right, so I'd like to open up the floor to some questions if there are any. Yeah.
Johnny, you said that as males we have a deep craving for acceptance.
Approval, not acceptance.
Okay. Is that something you think that's ingrained, through evolution, or is that something just it's another rule of society that we have that we should be?
I'll answer you in two parts, okay? I think that fundamentally some people are born alpha, which is not a gift or a detriment, it's just a genetic predisposition. Either you're there where fundamentally you believe you should be the leader of the pack, your self-esteem is up here, whether your self-confidence is down here. Okay? And you feel the urge to be dominant. And so, if you're naturally that way, you try and dominate, okay? Which is your way of getting approval. If you can't, you leave, go find another pack where you can. If you're not fundamentally, genetically alpha. You may well try and find your position within the chart because your self-confidence rises, but your self-esteem doesn't usually get under control. This is historical genetic idea. Approval is what you need in order to have no one else decide they want to outplace you from wherever you are. Okay? So, once you've got approval, you kind of don't have to fight because there isn't going to be any reason to. Sometimes a person waits until they're confident that the pack protector is weak and they can tear out his throat and take over. And then we have to make sure that they maintain approval or someone will come and tear their throat out. Okay? So, do I think that society is the major reason for our need for approval? Absolutely. Society is, because by our nature, if we want to be a participant in a society based on a genetic predisposition for a pack-like family unit, it's almost certainly the two were automatically connected. But I'm not an expert in this, and that's the best I can give you. Either way, once a man frees himself from his craving for approval, then he's truly free. Do you see that? Once a woman frees herself from the notion that security comes from someone else, she's truly free. I don't worry about my future. I don't worry that I'm going to have a lonely future with no grandchildren or whatever, because pretty much everyone I've ever had a friendship with loves to spend time with me, and I'm Uncle Johnny to an awful lot of young people.
Uncle Johnny?
Well, sometimes Uncle Bad Touch, but that's just the girls. And I expect it will continue this way for the rest of my life. You had something.
In your videos, you talked about the propagation of the ADHD gene through player type.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you would consider this the evolutionary psychological basis for
Sorry, it's having fun.
for the idea of wide rapport, where you cover like a bunch of random topics.
Absolutely. I believe that wide rapport, the ability to segue from topic to topic to topic and still come around, which is what I've been doing through a lot of this. Partly it's by design, partly it's because that's my nature. I do that all the time. I did that an awful lot in the seductive reasoning videos on purpose, because that's a way of keeping open loops so that when I came back to them, I wouldn't need to bring everyone back up to speed. And a lot of the time it was free association, because that's just the way my brain works. I believe that that lucky fucker, as they're called in the obstetrics gynecological societies, by the baby catchers, go, oh, this obviously negroid child has beautiful blonde hair and blue eyes, just like his daddy. And this happens a lot more often than anyone likes to talk about. I'm fairly sure that my theories are right, and I'm trying to put through a protocol to do testing that will substantiate my theories, but I don't want to talk about it right now. Go ahead. Oh, sorry.
20 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, you mentioned frame control with a watch. Watch only when I watch.
They're different. That's a different aspect. The frame control concept has much more to do with reasoned confidence. When you own your frame, when you know that the way you're looking at the world works, you're confident in it completely, and other people's questions come to you, and you can defend them because you can work in it. That model of the universe you can synthesize from all sides. You see how it works. When your frame is perfected for yourself, then your strength radiates. Other people will defer unless they can prove a hole in your frame. When your frame is weak, they won't defer. They won't presume you know what you're talking about. Follow what I'm saying? Regarding the ownership question, is there a related part?
Oh, the ownership. How can I apply that so it's useful?
Oh, most important thing is, when you think about whether or not, for example, you own your car, ask yourself the question, if someone told me I had to quit my job or give up my car, what would I do? If you say, I love my car so much I can't imagine giving it up, say to yourself, holy shit, I have massively overvalued my car. I'm living in a fantasy. I've romanticized my car as being much more than it actually is. If I offered Lucky a couple of times the value of his wristwatch for an identical in every way wristwatch that hadn't been handed down to him by ancestors, it wouldn't have the same value to him, except that in every other way it would be the same watch. Okay? I'm not criticizing this. Men are sentimental. But it's an artifact.
That sounds like almost if you hang on to something too much, it's a birth of a limited belief.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, sorry, I sound flat. I got a cold in my chest.
That's
I got a
fine.
cold in my
I heard what you said. I'll say it for you. If you hang on to something too tightly, it becomes a limiting belief for you.
Mhm.
If you hang on to something to the point where you cannot live without it, as far as you're concerned, it owns you completely. Okay?
Thank you.
And if it's not a sentient, living thing, then it doesn't care about you at all. So think about that. Someone in the back?
Oh, this is
Too late.
This is about the disarming that I was asking about before.
Mhm.
I had a situation last night. This isn't technically sexual disarming, but
Doesn't matter.
This guy came up to us and he was talking to my friend and he was basically saying, "Are you talking to me?" And I could tell that he was sort of wanting to fight or something. So I took him away, and then he came up to me and said, "I think I know you from somewhere." And then I responded, "I think I know." Well, yes, maybe you do.
Brittlebane in church? Sorry.
Says, "I think I know you from somewhere," again, and say, "Yes, maybe you do." And then he just says, "Fuck you," and then headbutts me. And I'm just wondering if there was something you would have done to disarm that situation for me.
Absolutely. The moment I would have gotten the sense that I was getting a bad vibe from a person, I would have said, "Hey, I'm sorry we're having such a rough time. I don't know that I know who you are. I'm so-and-so. Here, let me buy you a drink. Let's get this onto a pleasant place." Okay? I do my very, very, very best to be the host. Presume that everyone else there is someone that I'm responsible for because I've chosen to have them around me. The way I look at being a grown-up is I've decided I'm absolutely responsible for the things that happen to me. I'm absolutely responsible for the things that happen to the people I've chosen to have around me. Because that's what it is to be daddy, for lack of a better word. And so